You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
Reverend, I was in Memphis on February 1st for the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. And that was the anniversary of Echo Jones and Robert Weaver, the two Memphis sanitation workers who were killed. And it was very interesting being
February 1st, right?
February 1st. It was very interesting being there and how every year when we talk about the assassination of Dr. King, people forget why he was in Memphis. And so many people don't even know those names.
You know, he was organizing the Poor People's Campaign. He argued that, he said, we won the boycott in Montgomery. We can ride public facilities now. We're no longer humiliated with what he called barbarism. We won the battle of Birmingham. We now achieved the right to vote. We're in the war in Vietnam. He said, but then people still living in trailer camps without no toilets. Something's missing. He said that there should be a floor beneath which no American fall in terms of access to education, healthcare, and jobs and pay. And while organized, and he said it can't just be one ethnic group, he said, because they're going to have full employment on one side of town, unemployment on the other side of town. So we met that January the 15th, 68, at his church with a whites from Appalachia with whom we'd never worked. He just talked about them, to pull them together. Native Americans from the reservations, some Latino Americans, some of the Southwest group, some of Chavez group, some Jewish allies from New York, our Lord Saints, peace activists, and some blacks from Deep South. And then we met trying to figure out how to march to Washington, have a job and income. He said, come by bus, by train, but come. Going to Washington, tie up traffic, go to jail, and force the country to shift from killing in Vietnam to healing at home. He said, because bombs dropped in Vietnam, which closed down cities. So while in that kind of mood, you get to call that these two workers have been killed in Memphis, Jim Lawson called, and said, what you talk about, to make it concrete, it's in Memphis. You have sanitation workers who work, they're working, but they work every day. And they're seen as just garbage men. They clean away the germs. They too want to dream one day when they can see that child graduate from college as well. So everything about Memphis was compelling to Dr. King's emotion and our plan to address working poor people. And so those two killings on February 1st was significant as Jimmy Jackson being killed, triggering the march in Selma in 1965.
You talked about that meeting in January 68. I mean, the period from April 4th, 67, giving that speech beyond Vietnam in Riverside Church, to him being assassinated 1 year to the day. Just the pain, the difficulty that he was facing.
Well, he got pain from Black Americans. You know, the month before he was killed, about 55% of negative among African Americans. Civil rights leaders taking positions against him. I mean, the church had closed the pulpits to him during that season. I mean, Klansmen and Morehouse. I'm with you, Mike, but I'm not with this. This guy called him Mike. The newspaper editorials, they say he's a good guy. He convinced blacks not to shoot whites when they've been bombing him. He says, I was speaking, I will be heard. He felt the pain of rejection. So 55% of blacks said no to Dr. King, 70% of whites said no to him. After he was killed, everybody loved him. They rejected the marcher and embraced the martyr. That's why I was so bitter for a while, because I knew what the talk was in front of his face, sitting behind his back. He's off course. He's off course. He's killed. He's our kind of guy. And that's why I said we love martyrs. We can quote their poetry. We're not marchers who demand of us to act and to make something happen. And so I remember he was going into small towns. He would come to a place like Chicago, churches half full. So I developed the idea of if I can make 50 markets, 20 churches in each market, 1,000 churches. If they convene their churches for a Dr. King rally, with the pressures, but not the churches full. We had to figure out ways to market in different kinds of ways. But Roland, I think maybe the most graphic way is the weekend before we went to Memphis. I had to be around March 30th, I suppose. He called on Friday night about 9. He said, I want you guys to meet me tomorrow morning. I didn't want to go. We had a breakfast meeting the next day. It was up and moving. He had been there 2 weeks before. Bevel said, we went to Chicago. Bevel started, he was in Chicago. We said, I think T.Y. may have been in Cincinnati or something, so thought we'd be there. Saw the kind of wrap up after call about an hour later and said, look, Martin is challenging us to come together. And Rap always played that kind of heavy role, but he was kind of Peter the Rock. He was the Rock, so we said we'd be there. So Bevel and I, we got on to O'Hare Airport. Doc and I, we just missed our plane. 7 o'clock. I said, I know y'all gonna miss it. I get you on the 740. I know y'all gonna miss that plane. So we got the thing. And we got to Atlanta. It was about 10 of us. It was Bevel and Jose and T.L. Rogers and the Young, and about 10 of us, Dorothy Cotton. He said, it's been a tough week for me. He said, I've been with Ralph and his wife Juanita all week, Coretta, and his wife Jean. And I've had migraine headaches. Thought about quitting. Maybe I've done as much as I can do. I've been on this 13 years. We won Montgomery, won Birmingham, we won. He said, but now I'm at the end of the war. I cannot, I'm a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I can't propagate my sense of justice. Killing in Vietnam and healing at home. Killing in Vietnam and prospering at home. He said, I can't do that. He said, maybe I should just become president of the White House. I was around and do speeches, make money, and write books. So if I quit, if I turn around, I remember Andy said, Doc, don't talk that way. He said, Andy, be quiet. Don't say peace, peace, never is no peace. Let me finish talking. That's kind of Jeremiah. They don't say peace, peace, never is no peace. And when he said, be quiet, we listened. He said, but I can't turn around because Harry Tubman and Frederick Douglass, who never gave up, they wouldn't accept me. I can't go back. So maybe I thought if I were to fast to the point of death. So there's a disunity in our movement. He said that as Stokely and Rap, we're friends. We disagree on strategy. And Jim Farmer and Paul McKissick and Roy Wilkins and Whitney Young. So because we're friendly, they come by my bedside. We'd hold on before I would die. We could regroup right there. Things were very solemn. They said, we can turn the minus surplus, we can go on to Memphis and deal with those workers and lift them up and win that battle, go on to Washington. He just kind of talking about the depression. But I reading up the world, I was taking notes. It was like the 3 moves of Jesus. Let this cup pass from me. As he prayed, disciples slept. Did not my will, but thine be done. He went to the same 3 moves. That was that Saturday morning before. When he got through, I remember Bevel saying, Dr. King, if we get to Washington, the White House is already against us. What's the hook? I don't understand. So I blurted out, Dr. King, if we get there, what's the hook? We were insensitive, frankly, the pain he was in, agonizing, plus all the stuff you don't know the leaders are thinking about in the first place, what else was on his mind. So he said, I don't know what the hook. I said, well, Doc, suppose we had the 50 cities. At that time, GM was the largest company in the country. We took a line of cars, Cadillac, Chevrolet, whatever. We said we were not going to buy that line of cars. And the big GM would convene its fellow corporate. They would meet with the president and said, well, we'll try it then. See you guys in a minute. He walked out the room. I left, went back to Chicago, because where our family was. And Bevel and I did together. And he came to Atlanta, I think, that Tuesday. He got to Atlanta. He said, I'd been here a little earlier. The plane I was on, they had entered the plane. There were threats because Martin Luther King was on the plane. He said, I got off and nothing happened. And he came on in, and then you saw the four of us, Jose Rabb and Dr. King out on the balcony. He was just coming in from the airport at that time. And
that was March 3rd.
April.
I'm sorry, April 3rd. It was April 3rd.
I think that was April.
Right, it was the day before. Y'all on the balcony.
I think that April 2nd, I think.
Okay.
Because they were with the ministers the next day.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how to organize. Remember in this last speech you talked about Jesse talking about Coca-Cola and
Mm-hmm.
the bread. That was in that speech. That had happened the day before.
Okay.
And he said on the 3rd, he said, well, after talking all day, he said, my dad's asleep. I said, what happened, Pop? He said, Pop, country boy, didn't have no high school diploma, came up out the city, So my grandpa was sitting down in front of the church reading the Bible. And so he said, I want to join the church, Pop. He said, once Dad found that Dad had grandpa had a daughter, so Dad was all in. And his mom was apparently in private school at that point. He said, and so Dad messed around, and he and my mama got married. And Dad reviving his education, commitment to education. He said, and can I walk through his family tree? And his brother was born, his sister was born, and all that. Then he said, I don't feel like speaking tonight. I'm kind of dry. Jesse, you go. Doc, I had been speaking to ministers earlier that day. I shot my best shots. Doc, I don't have it. So, well, you ought to do it. So they apparently asked Anthony too, and they said, Ralph, you go. So Ralph suggested let's go together. So that's why Ralph ended up going together, because Ralph could always fill in a blank, a spot in that way. So Ralph and I went to the church, and it was raining that night. At that time, Mason Jeff had a 10-top roof. We got in the door, the side door of the church, and people cheered. The church was about half full, and they cheered. Right, Ralph said, Jesse, you understand, they're not cheering for us. They think Martin behind us. They ain't think about that. So we went down the side of the church to the back of Mason Temple, back where Bishop Mason is entombed. I went to the telephone, dialed the telephone, and said, Martin, if you come, just let them see you. You don't have to do a lot of talking. So I'll said, Jesse, I'll both we'll talk. So Dr. King, we went back and told Dr. King was on the way to shit again. Ben Dukes was there, and Bishop Patterson was there. I remember that very distinctly. Dr. King walked in, they cheered. And so Ralph gave a rather long introduction. Trying to let him buy time. There's a picture of me trying to debrief Doc as to what I thought was happening. And what I thought was, he was already in his own zone. I'm just talking. She got me and said, there ain't another time I could live. It should be now. He talked about when Aristotle lived, and Aristotle needs to start walking through Greek history and world history. But this is the time to be alive. And then at some point he shifted and said, but I'm not fearing any man. Now, in retrospect, there may have been in his mind threats on his life, which we would never know. He was facing the threat of and or fear of death, because he always told us there's no defense against ambush and sabotage, so don't be afraid of death. He convinced us we could go to jail without fear, die without fear. We were kind of there. He didn't share that. He said, but for you ministers, you guys, we can just share the pain. If the government workers heard that these big companies feel the pain, we went.
Redistribute the pain.
Then he said, you're in the mountaintop. Now I've seen the promised land, and I may not get there, but we will get there, boy. He said, anyway, Roland, that men were crying, ministers were crying. it was real, it was so authentic, so real, so genuine. And it could happen. It was going to happen. It was not going to happen, but it could happen. And so when he got through, we turned to me and we embraced. The next day, we stayed most of the day, and I think the commandos came out for a while, and we talked about some of their issues. I had been branched down there in the group, Wayne Bennett group in Chicago, preparing to sing at the rally that night.
Right. He's upstairs on the balcony, and you're downstairs by the car with Ben Branch.
Yeah, I was downstairs, coming across the courtyard. Ben was in the car. Yeah, I was coming this way. We just left the carousel. And Dr. Jesse, we go into Billy's house. I set them up at Billy's house and his wife. He said, we're going, and you don't even have on a tie. I said, Doc, prerequisite for eating is not a tie, it's an appetite. He said, you're crazy. We laughed about it. I said, you're the one that's late. He was an hour late. And Ben spoke to him. He said, and he'd heard Ben play pressure on the saxophone the week before. I had the breakfast 2 weeks before. And Ben said, I make sure to play it. And he read it, Doc, pow. He said, Doc, pow. And somebody said, get low, because it was a hit. And we didn't know what the hit was going to be spraying bullets. So I was on the ground, and the rap was in the room. I think Bernard must have been downstairs. The rap, Billy Cowles was about so far, trying to go down the steps. And there's a picture of Andy, Billy Cowles, and someone just and they later pointing that way. And that pointing is that the bullet didn't come from that way, because he's on the ground. It came from that way, so the police had their guns drawn. Go the way the bullet came from. The bullet came from that way. That's that picture. Mr. Withers, the photographer, he was there.
Ernest Withers.
And he scooped up a couple of jars of blood. Tried to give me one, and Ralph one. I couldn't touch the blood. I remember Ralph coming back. My son, my brother been shot. I'm his dearest friend. Ralph, Martin, hold on. We need you to hold on. Martin, hold on. But I was gone at that point, And so I just got up and wrapped myself off, and I was standing next door, the room next door. I called Mrs. King. She was in the bed. She said, Jess, how you doing? I said, I'm doing this fine. I said, Mrs. King, couldn't quite get my mouth together. I said, I'm reading. I said, Doc been shot, I think, in the shoulder. I knew better. I couldn't say what I had just seen. I want to check up in that way. I said, but you should go and see him if you can. She said, I'll be there momentarily. She got up out the bed. And apparently, for 7 or 8 minutes, someone called, the press, to say he was dead. Man, bedlam broke out. The fires around the country. But what excited me the most was, I think it was Reverend Joe Lyons said, we can't let one bullet kill a movement. We with all the trauma of his death. I remember being in the room with Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier and Robert Kennedy, talking about what Dr. King meant to us. And doggone, we were in Washington, and Robert Kennedy got killed. Boom, boom, back to back.
Wait, go back. If you call Coretta Scott King, and before that, he's laying there, y'all surrounding him, and we see the photos of Ralph Abernathy kneeling next to him. Where are all of you mentally in that moment? Because this is your leader. You were just joking. You were talking about going to dinner.
Brains frozen. What do you do except somebody, I think Billy Cowles got a sheet to cover his face. I think that somebody called the ambulance, 911, like we're frozen. And the ambulance came rather quickly. It was too late. He was dead upon impact, and my bullet hit him, went down and blew his heart out. And so I called the ON in Chicago, because at that time Don Canese was running the news in Redwoods. Got my wife and children, and Red Bastard in Chicago, because we had a pretty substantial movement running by the time. And so I explained in the press came what happened. Jose and I was standing side by side. That's pictures of that press conference. And rather than go with them to the morgue. I flew back to Chicago because my family was there. All the rest of them lived in Atlanta. I lived in Chicago.
So you wanted to get back home immediately?
Get rid of my family and get ready to come back to Atlanta because of the funeral. Others who went to Atlanta stayed in Atlanta. I went back to Chicago to be with my family to organize them, frankly. And it was it was tough. It was painful. And yet it was a kind of numbness, the kind of adrenaline kicks, it was kind of numbness of the brain. And I remember getting home by 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and about 4 or 500 folk at the airport, lots of bread baskets with Mrs. Loman, Jackie, and the children and all that. I went home and fell across the bed, took a nap, woke up, and Senator Percy was there. Said he's sorry about what happened last night. I got up and went down to City Hall in Chicago. And what upset me about that meeting was the same ministers and politicians who were against him. So out of Monday, April 2nd and 3rd, they were, well, how much I love Martin. I wanted to kick a table over. I mean, this is so.
And you didn't change clothes. You slept in those clothes. You go down to City Hall, and there's this outpouring of let's rename the street Martin Luther King Drive.
All that, I thought all that to be so hypocritical and symbolic. It had nothing to do with what we had lost. But let's say a $10 street sign for $1 billion profit. And so I went back to Atlanta, and Andy was in his blue jeans, and so was James Orange and Bevel and the Railroad Abernathy. We more or less kept on what we had on 3 or 4 days. It was just kind of, we had the mule train. It was not a place for exactly suits and ties and 3-piece suits. It was that kind of scene, you know. And I thought Abernathy was particularly good. He was doing the straight ministerial processing, and I thought was traumatized by it in a big way. They both think I had a very clear head. I think I had a clear head. I don't know where I was really. There was lots of pain.
Jim Lawson said that first of all, he would have been on the balcony and would have gone to dinner with y'all, but he said he promised his wife he would always do dinner with his family. He said that's why he wasn't there. So earlier in the day that there was a court hearing and he was involved in that, but he said he went home. But he said that in the aftermath, he went straight to work. He said we kept going. He said it wasn't until July or August. He said it was in July when when the grief hit him. He said literally between April 4th and May and June, he said we had work to do.
That's why I try to say when I say adrenaline, because if you're playing ball in the big game and your key guy gets hurt, you can't cancel the game. You can't forfeit the game. You got to suck it up. And in the name of the hurt player, play. The name of the dead leader, you can't give the killers the satisfaction they stopped the movement. They were not successful in stopping us from marching. They were not successful in stopping us from going to resurrection. They were not successful in stopping our drive to end the war and to end poverty. We kept moving, and we'd already had plans. Reverend Walter Fauntleroy was our key guy in Washington for the tent city, the resurrection city between Lincoln Memorial and Washington Monument. And it seemed like it rained every day. And I remember one morning, Reverend Abernathy said, Jesse, I want you to be mayor of Resurrection City. That man couldn't be in the people every morning give instructions. The press was riding his back because he was saying a lot in Pitt's motel. As if Pitt's was 4 Seasons or something. It's a regular kind of neighborhood, black motel. And the press was just picking at him because he was not modern, he was rap. And did one hell of a job, in my judgment, doing his season of work. And one morning, 2 people died from meningitis. Men that seemed to have vacated the camp. Robert Kennedy dead, Dr. King dead, the White House turned its back on the scene. And I was looking at women's face and children for the most part. I didn't have nothing to give them, no bus fare, no food. I said, I read the book by Howard Thurman, Jesus and the Disinherited. He said, when you reduce your irreducible essence, when you stand naked against the world, you're still somebody. You still matter. So I said, I am somebody. They began to respond. I may be poor, maybe unwell, but I may be unskilled. That's where that came from, that moment. That's where that rallying cry started right there at that time. And we stayed there for a while longer, but we kept on marching. It hit me much later that year. I found myself refraining from going to Memphis for a long time. It just, and I don't like to go to Memphis now. Matter of fact, I go because Memphis has a new meaning to me now. You see, the king to me, Atlanta was Bethlehem. It had nothing to do with Bethlehem where he was born. And Mason Temple really was Gethsemane, mountaintop. And the balcony was Calvary. In a certain way, I can understand about it going back to Atlanta. But he went to heaven from Memphis. It happens to be the place where the poor blacks of the Delta of Mississippi and Arkansas and poor whites of Appalachia meet at that Mississippi River. That's where he died. That's where he left us. And there's still a story to be told about when blacks from the Delta of Arkansas and Mississippi and who picked cotton and coal miners who dig coal for find common ground, there will be a New Jerusalem, so to speak. So there's a lot to be said about Memphis as not as a place where he was killed, but as a resurrection site, because the resurrection does not take place far from the crucifixion. Memphis has lots of challenge, and there's a new kind of South now. You couldn't have had the Memphis Grizzlies behind the cotton curtain if we not been successful. Atlanta Falcons, Dallas Cowboys. You couldn't have had Toyota, Mississippi had we not been successful. We pulled down the cotton curtain and built a whole new world, a whole new South, which laid groundwork for many new things in America. So his blood fertilized the soil and created a whole new dynamic in American politics.
They expect 30 to 50,000 people to come to Memphis to commemorate his assassination. But what do you want? And in fact, they expect several former presidents to be there. I asked Trump at the White House when he met with the TV anchors, does he plan on attending? He said he thought so. If Trump is there, what do you want him to leave Memphis with? And what do you want the people to leave with? It's one thing to come there to commemorate, to remember his assassination. It's different to leave.
I don't think Trump has been to the statue on the Mall. Trump's positions are so antithetical to Dr. King's vision, he may not be received well.
Should he come?
Well, it's his choice to make. I don't think he'll not be cheered. It's not like he'll be cheered. My concern is not that people come for the service, for the celebration, the commemoration. The 4 million blacks in the South are not registered, man. If we can register 2 million new blacks in the South, we change the South and change the country. In spite of all of the negative stuff that comes from the Trump season, we won New Jersey. Ain't got a black lieutenant governor. In Virginia, one guy says he was Robert Lee and the Confederates, and the flag and the statue. The opposition, we won that, and one of every 5 votes was African American. We winning.
Go ahead.
We go to Alabama, and Roy Moore and Trump shoot their best shot. We win, one of every 3 blacks African American. So that some of that energy must be turned into every high school senior, man, should come across the stage with a diploma in one hand and the voter card in the other.
In fact, there's a placard there. There's a placard.
Wait, one of my concerns is right down through the black belt. That's a case in point. All the high schools got black principals. You can convene those high school seniors as you would for prom or for graduation and register. And there's no George Wallace to stop you. There's no Bull Connor to stop you. Like, do it. You know, there's 250,000 blacks in Alabama unregistered, 600,000 in Georgia unregistered. This is the time for us to show our love for the Dr. King and the cause by fulfilling the dream was a full registration crusade drive.
That's why when I talk about the National Civil Rights Museum, there's a, I mean, I was there for the 40th, and when I visited, I saw this, and it has been just locked in my brain for the last 10 years. And the sign said, it was a young girl, and she said, "All I want for my 18th birthday is a voter registration card." I mean, out of everything in that museum, that's the one thing that is locked into my head.
Well, one thing we do in Chicago now, there's an election March 20th. The roads closed February 20th. We got in Illinois automatic voter registration. New York, Pennsylvania, and Michigan only have one day to vote. It's on Tuesday. Chicago, you have a month to vote. But there are 10,000 students in Chicago proper alone. We want to have all 10,000 high school students registered by February 20th. Then that's the suburban ring. There's the rest of the state. This to energize, unleash these youth the power of applied civics. All those in city colleges, concerned that they can't afford the additional books, vote for them. All those in college who want tuition lower, since student loans are greater than credit card debt. I mean, this is the time to fight, not just to commemorate, to look forward, not just to look backwards. And so I know there'll be huge crowds. There'll be those who are in the crowd marching who will not be registered, and that's sickening.
I gave a speech at Georgia State yesterday, and I've said this in numerous speeches, that what troubles me is that every year, around Dr. King's birthday, around April 4th, people talk about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And I always say, first of all, he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize for the movement, and so it was Fannie Lou Hamer, Constance Baker Motley, Ella Baker. It was all of the folks who were working to make it happen. I said the trouble that I have is he has become what I call America's civil rights mascot. Pull him out, oh, Dr. King, and makes people smile. They play some speeches. They say, oh, how great he is, as opposed to what you said earlier. What did he stand for, fight for, and die for?
Because use that dollar, economic leverage, so we have Wall Street Project. Use that vote to affect the makeup of races. You put on 4 million new votes across the South will go from red to blue. Because what we proved in Georgia, except it was nullified this time around, the votes were nullified, and Alabama and Virginia, the southern states, and we voted in coalition with progressive whites, women and workers, we're the new majority. You know, we got the right to vote in 1965. First 185 years to protect the right to vote. White women couldn't serve on juries. It unleashed that dimension. 18-year-olds couldn't vote. Those serving in Vietnam couldn't vote on college campus, couldn't vote bilingually. That's 3 million Korean Americans, for example. That post-Selma generation, that's what drove my campaigns in 84 and 80. That's what drove President Barack to the White House. The post-Selma voters and fighters. And so those who benefit from that struggle have no right to expect much and give little. I mean, and there are no more dogs barking and horses kicking and axes sound being swung by governors to stop us. And that requires really doing it. And to me, that's my way of saying thank you to Dr. King for his life and for his service.
Why did you stay on the path? He sent you to Chicago for breadbasket. Others went in different areas. Why did you say, no, I'm gonna stay right here? I could do other stuff. I'm gonna stay. I was talking to somebody earlier. They said, had Reverend gone to corporate America, he could have sold anything. Had he done any other area, oh, he could have easily been highly successful. Why'd you stay?
Well, because the struggle for economic justice is my ministry. It is my life. My assignment was to look at those stores in the community where we could not be checkout clerks. We couldn't be produce men. We couldn't pick up the garbage. Really, you know, you take a given chain store with 10 stores. If you get the letter of intent to pick up the garbage for 3 years, the letter of credit, you can get new trucks and sludge if you're on the trucks. we built the first chains for national teacher for the Central Calumet. We began to build a new urban paradigm. The breadbacks became such a hot item before he died. And that's why I mentioned it in the last speech in Memphis, because I saw in it a way to fight for economic justice. But I saw the caucus as being the political caucus, black caucus, politics, but then the capital is Wall Street. So now we're getting our share. You know, so the economic principles are different. If you spend more than you make and vote less than you can, that's suicide. You must spend less than you make and vote all that you can. That's the principle. There are a few companies that can survive our sustained economic withdrawal. And therefore, I went to the shareholders meeting at Hewlett Packard. And they had said first in Silicon Valley that we should not leverage them because they could withstand it. And second, the position was that they didn't have to show the EO1 reports. So we bought shares of stock in 25 companies. That's as opposed to picketing outside. We went to shareholders meeting where you have Bloomberg and New York Times, New York Bureau in the back. So I said, 25% of our company stock is African American and Latino. And none of them on our board, speaking to shareholders about that much stock. We don't advertise to any of them, none in our C-suites. They said, wait, let's have a meeting. So we met, and I must say it was a very good meeting. Now there are 4 blacks on the board of HP. And Jim Bell's on the board at Twitter, Google. And on the board of Facebook now is Ken Chenault. On the board of Twitter is
Deborah
Lee, the chair who succeeded Bill Gates at
Microsoft. John Thompson.
From Florida Indiana, by the way. But by going to those meetings and leveraging our consumer strength and our capacity and gender coalition and imagery, that happened. So I find this to be fascinating ministry because I can see the evidence of our work. I see people working and being trained. We're trying to get 1,000 churches. They should empty the Sunday school room and put 20 laptops and teach our children apps and codes and financial literacy and stock market game. There may be 1 million jobs right now for coders right now. And we cannot wait for Trump to train our children to do it. We can do it ourselves, and we must, and we can, and we will.
If he said, Reverend, how you doing? I appreciate what you've done. What would your response be?
Dr. King or Trump?
Dr. King. Trump not going to say that.
I said I never surrendered, I never stopped. When they said Dr. King fell in Chicago, he's still there. We never stop. Dr. King's workshop meets every day, mass meeting every week. We inspire and educate. From that platform, Al Washington spoke, Roland Burr spoke, Barack Obama spoke, Charlie Hayes spoke. From that platform, Mandela spoke, Free South Africa. From that platform, we went to Cuban Brother Americans Home from Prison. From that platform, we've helped to change the world. His work in Chicago continues. Dr. King's workshop is functioning. His staff is still meeting right now. It's called Rainbow Push, but it's his staff.
Last question. Just lost Wyatt T. Walker.
Oh boy.
As I said, Clarence Jones out of the hospital. You look at Reverend Joseph Lowry. You look at these warriors getting up in age. But are you optimistic when you look at these young warriors?
I am.
They're fearless.
Yeah. One of them, of course, in that lineage of struggle is Reverend Al Sharpton. He's in that lineage of struggle. But what Al and I have basically done by continuing running the circuit, there's now doors open that were not open 50 years ago. Dr. King used to have to go to LA to the big civil rights rally, or Oakland, or Chicago, or Detroit, the big civil rights rally. Now you got kids 30 years old becoming city council people, and state reps, and Congress people, and mayors, and comptrollers, and handling pension funds and investors. So many more doors open. So you might have all leaders as visible as the one that you have one or two running the circuit, but that's a far bigger crowd of witnesses now that's fighting back, and they're now currently in the education of what they want to be and become. We didn't have a John Rogers doing 401k 50 years ago. We didn't have Jim Reynolds and Chris Williams on Wall Street 50 years ago. We didn't have 400 like dealerships, car dealerships 50 years ago. We only had Al Johnson in 1967, 50 years ago. So I see a generation that be known that have another role to play, but they're playing that role. And in Chicago right now, you see the dynamic. They produced Harold Washington, the same Chicago that laid that groundwork, produced 3 senators, Karamazov Braun, Rock and Roller Burris, produced 5 congressmen. It's produced 1 presidential candidate and 1 who succeeded as president. So the fertile soil that he cultivated in Detroit and Chicago is still bearing fruit. So he's still winning every day.
And with that winning, and with this progress we've been on, do you believe it was a mistake for so many African Americans to put so much faith in gaining political power and not really study where he was when he kept trying to say, even that last speech, economic power? That everything for me, when I look at 63 to 68, constant real economics.
The reason, see, we live in the political economy. Here's what I say on that. The reason why there was a certain breakthrough after 65, once we became mayor of Detroit, we could then begin to give out contracts, which is the business we didn't have. Once Harold became mayor, he began to redistribute pension funds and create the whole class of and Harold Washington and Kumian set the pace. Our mayor should in fact use that base. Jobs we never had before, economics. Contracts we never had before, economics. Lawyers that we never had before, economics. So it's a political economy, so that there's some relationship between, I think we should appreciate that both matter.
Mm-hmm. Both matter, and we have to have both, and it's not either or. It's and.
It's both and, because I'm rather convinced, even there you cannot have you must see the nation through a door, not through a keyhole. But you can have a small circle. What's cutting off urban money? When the big banks in Washington, in New York, redline where they invest, the insurance companies redline where they insure, we can't grow. Then you develop what I call the invisible hand of racism. That's why we're going to have mayors at the Wall Street Summit in New York, because our citizens are being cut off. You become the treasurer without a treasury, unless you leverage those insurance companies that want to do business with cities. Look at the EO1 reports. Those banks that want to do money with cities, look at the EO1 reports, and look at their primary and secondary procurement list. Part of what we're doing right now, mayors can do. You should not do business with City Hall unless you see the EO1 report, where they land, what their records are. Any mayor really can do that if they just will.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.